I want to tell you about this framed document that I have, which stands equal to my O-level certificate in metalwork. It was given to me on my 60th birthday by a friend, a Shetland friend, Colin Stove, and I'll read it out to you. It says, the LK75 Broonies Taing Lobster Consortium hereby wishes to commemorate the 60th birthday of its Emeritus member Kenneth Bull for his honourable services to the consortium during the famous 1960s in effecting the expedient transport of the live products to market in an exemplary fashion, using his notorious Black Maria form of transport. We hereby present this small token image in remembrance of our exciting products by order of the board. So, what was that all about? Back in 1967, when I was at school in Lerwick and living in Shetland, my friend Colin, who was at the same school as me, between us we felt we needed some sort of income, a bit of money to do things within our teenage years. It was 1967, so I suppose we were typically 17 years old, maybe 18. And we thought we would go to the Lobsters. We would fish for lobsters. Colin's dad was a seaman and he was away at sea for months on end, and he had a boat and an outboard motor. It was a Shetland model, just an open, small boat, about 14 feet long, and a very small, probably 1 horsepower Seagull outboard motor. So he had the craft to go to sea with, and we made a few lobster creels and got ourselves all geared up. And the other thing we required for this project was transport to get our lobsters up to the market, which was either in Scalloway or Lerwick. Indeed, there were people there who kept them in big tanks of seawater and sold them on to restaurants in France and Europe. So, the first problem we had was we just had this little open boat, and to pay for the fuel, the Department of Agriculture and Fisheries would compensate us for that if we had a registered fishing boat. So Colin and I went up to Lerwick to the offices, and we sat there and convinced them that we had a proper fishing boat, and they gave us the registration LK75. I can't remember if we painted it on the boat or not, but it doesn't matter. We were then official, which meant we could buy ourselves a big drum of fuel, and that kept us going with our boat off to the Lobsters. What we also did, maybe slightly unofficially, well, it was unofficially, was we also filled up the tank of our vehicle, which was my part of the project, a 1946 Austin 10, which by then would have been 21 years old, a bit of a clapped out thing. It had no MOT or road licence or anything like that, which didn't really matter because I didn't have a driving licence. But it all worked very well, and we were able to get the Department of Agriculture and Fisheries to pay for fuel for our Austin 10, which then supplemented our enjoyment at weekends, Friday nights and Saturday nights, when we flew about in this old banger of a car. It was very good of the government to help us out in that respect. So what we did was, in all weathers, and bearing in mind Colin could swim, but I couldn't swim a stroke. We would go in all weathers. We'd get up 5 o'clock in the morning. I'd get in the car, drive to Colin's house, and we'd go to Broonies Taing, where we kept the boat. It was moored on the end of a rope, and we'd draw it in, get the outboard motor on, get fired up, and we'd have bait for the lobster creels, and off we'd go around the cliffs of Sandwick. No rescue helicopters in those days, and the nearest lifeboat was in Lerwick, 15 miles away, which didn't really matter because nobody could see us where we were anyway, so if anything went wrong, well, tough luck. But we'd go out, get our lobsters, bring them back, keep them in a wooden fishing box, a fish box that floated off the pier. And once we had enough lobsters, which didn't take too long, there were plenty on the go in those days, we would then get the big fish box in, or maybe 2 boxes of lobsters, in the boot of my car, and we would drive up to either Scalloway, which it was just a little village really. We could safely get there and back, but sometimes the market and the best price was in Lerwick, and that's where things could be very tricky, driving into Lerwick unofficially in our Austin 10, getting the money for our lobsters and back home again. So that was our little project, and we made decent money at it. It was a very good little project, and we kept it going for a while. And that's why Colin, for a little bit of fun, all those years later when I was 60, gave me this fine framed parchment. Unfortunately, the card that we used in the project didn't fare quite so well. There we are. I eventually went round a corner too fast with it, and it went over on its side and was completely wrecked. So my £25 investment, I ended up getting £5 for scrap for it. But it was a lovely little runner when it did go, and that's the story of the LK75 Broonies Taing Lobster Consortium.